Hello, everyone. Walking encyclopedia of knowledge,
Oh, I don't know about that.
of information
Yeah.
about spiritual practices and Chinese internal practices. Damo Mitchell has found the time to join me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for chatting with me. No.
And today, as I've said to Damo, the plan is to talk about some concept, myths, and maybe misconceptions that exist in alternative community in general.
Nice controversial topic we've got.
Yes, it's going to be very, very controversial. And kind of to start with the most controversial topic, question, it's about vegetarianism.
Right.
Yeah, because from what I've noticed, many people kind of automatically think spiritual means vegetarian.
Yeah. Okay.
And also healthy means vegetarian.
Okay.
Which I know you have a very specific opinion about as a spiritual practitioner.
Yes.
And as a Chinese medicine doctor practitioner. Would you please?
Yeah,
explain?
sure. I think that vegetarianism, I think it really depends what you're doing and what your take on why you are vegetarian. I mean, my advice to people would be, if you are vegetarian for health purposes, then you should probably look maybe a little bit deeper at it, because it's a little bit more of a complicated issue than just saying being vegetarian is healthy. And if you're being vegetarian for ethical reasons, you don't like the killing and the suffering of animals, then actually I support vegetarianism, because I believe that with regards to your physical health, most people are actually healthier if they are not vegetarian, to be perfectly honest. It is healthier to not be vegetarian. So what happens is that in this scene or whatever, people will go, look, here is a vegetarian athlete who's ripped, and here is a vegetarian who's healthy. But these are normally the outliers. So that doesn't mean that that's like 1% of all the people that are vegetarian. Whereas most people that are vegetarian, from a Chinese medical perspective at least, would be a little bit deficient, and usually quite blood deficient as well. So that's where it puts me in a strange position, because I would say that for the vast majority of people, you should not be vegetarian, right? If it is for health purposes. But of course, there are exceptions, because there's always exceptions to the rule, but they are not the majority. I, for one, I tried being vegetarian for just over a year, and I was very picky about it. Maybe too much. Maybe that was a problem. And my health was worse as a vegetarian, for sure. I don't think it's the healthiest option. From a Chinese medical perspective, it's difficult to maintain the health and the energetic quality of your blood without some meat in your diet, especially red meat. So blood deficiency is very common in vegetarians, especially in women. And this is where it becomes a little bit controversial, because men are actually better at being vegetarian than women are, which is never a popular view. And the main reason for that is, well, that's premenopause, I would say, actually, premenopause. Because premenopause, when women are still going through the menstrual cycle, every single month, every 28-day cycle, you are shedding some blood. And most, it's true, most women will have slightly lower energy levels at the bare minimum around that period. And what happens is from a Chinese medical perspective, your blood is a little bit less strong. Mm-hmm. So what happens is, if you're a woman and you're vegetarian and you're also losing blood a few days every month, and then you're also working strenuously through something like yoga or Tai Chi or martial arts or whatever you're doing, all of those things are attacking your blood. Mm. Whereas men, still, their health tends to be more vibrant if they're meat eaters, but they don't have the added complexity of the period. Right? So if you take something like Qigong, for example, that people wouldn't usually consider quite strenuous, but you might not agree after doing Qigong with me for a couple of years. It can be quite strenuous, but generally seen as something more gentle. I would say that vegetarians struggle to build the level of qi, energy within their body, that non-vegetarians do as well. And so from a purely health perspective, I would say that vegetarianism on the whole, excluding those outlying exceptions, is less healthy. So I don't advocate for it. But sorry, long answer, I apologize. But it's because a lot of people feel so strongly on this, I want to put some length into the answer. Is if you are vegetarian because of moral reasons, you don't like the suffering of animals, then I totally get it. I understand that. And I think that you should remain vegetarian because your morals and your ethics should come before a drop in your health. So in my opinion, it's almost like a degree of martyrdom, if you want, to a certain degree. It's like you're sacrificing a little bit of your health for your morals of the preservation of the life and the ending of the suffering of animals. And I think that if you have a very strong ethical or moral code around non-killing or non-violence, and vegetarianism is how you interpret that, then I think it's worse for your health to compromise your morals than it is to be vegetarian. Because if you compromise your morals, then psychologically that will damage you and that will cause you more harm from the inside. So I have seen people that are vegetarian for very strong moral reasons switch to eating meat because they're doing a lot of physical exercise or something, and it's just easier to sustain your health. But then the guilt that they felt and the sort of not being in alignment with their beliefs actually caused them more damage on the inside. So I advised them to go back to being vegetarian.
You mentioned once that originally Buddhists were not vegetarians.
No. Well, I mean, there's different types of Buddhism.
Yes.
So even now, like in Southeast Asia, many Buddhists are not vegetarian anyway. I mean, especially with regards to alms seeking, you will eat what you are given. And quite often they are given meat. So their interpretation of it is that, they are not doing the killing themselves. But I mean, they don't even see that as a form of violence, particularly because of the natural cycle of life. So that's their view. You then have the Tibetans, I guess, are probably the Buddhists that probably a lot of people are most influenced by. And if you've ever been to Tibet, which I have been arrested there actually, but if you've ever been to Tibet, you wouldn't be a vegetarian in Tibet. I mean, you certainly wouldn't be vegan. Yeah. Nothing grows there. Like, it's just gravel.
And it's too cold.
Yeah. So they ate meat. So a part of the reason that the Tibetans kind of changed that was the area they went to up into northern India. There was a lot of beliefs around not eating of beef, obviously, and the cow in India. And also there was, it's a little bit of an oversimplification, but maybe if you want to simplify it, you could say that the change of Tibetan Buddhism as it went into India was a little bit of PR,
okay,
right? Because of their image. And so then vegetarianism was adopted, even though it's a known fact that the Dalai Lama is quite fond of bacon sandwiches, which he says is for his health. So he himself is not vegetarian, but a lot of people adopt the vegetarianism from there. And then the same with others, some spiritual traditions, some forms of Hinduism will say non-violence is not killing. Other forms of Hinduism will view it differently. It's very, very individual across the tradition. So when I say Buddhists are not vegetarian, some of the Chan are. When I say Buddhists are not vegetarian, what I mean is it's not a blanket rule. So again, it's individual, is how you interpret it. And it's not nothing else. I don't think it's a reason to become vegetarian because you erroneously now identify with a new tradition or religion that you've joined. I think if you morally come to the conclusion it's right for you, then sure. But, why adopt everything from a tradition personally would be my view. Yeah.
Let's go to another, the next, I would say controversial topic, which would be sexual practices in spiritual community.
Sure.
And I see kind of two major branches. The first would, if I may call it, the first would be tantric practices.
Okay.
Which, as far as I know, it's not only connected to sex, but people chose it to be connected just to sex.
Especially in the West.
Yeah. And the second would be Taoist sexual practices, given by, I would say, Mantek Chia to the West, who's claiming that you can get lots of energy, become very spiritual, and some other useful functions. And I also know that you have a very certain opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I should probably stick within the Taoist sexual stuff, because while I have some knowledge on Tantra, I'm aware that a lot of people will have more knowledge than I do in that scene. Tantra originally did not mean a sexual practice, no. Tantra means a tradition, really. I mean, it's interpreted in many, many ways, but one branch of Tantra practice is very much based on the kind of psychological energy based around taboos. So you can already see why it kind of moved into a sexual direction. But Tantra had all kinds of other practices to it, but it's not my forte, so I wouldn't discuss it with any authority. Whereas Taoist sexual practice I can talk about fairly safely. Taoist sexual practice is misunderstood because of the misinterpretation of Jing, which means essence. It does not mean your sexual fluids. And that misinterpretation kind of lies at the heart of lots of it. So your Jing inside your body, I mean, sure, the production, if you know anything about Chinese medicine, Jing goes on to produce many of the things such as the blood and the fluids in your body. It also goes on to cellular reproduction and all these kind of things. So everything physical within your body that is changing and developing throughout your life as you grow and age is to do with Jing. And then one part of this is your sexual fluid. So it is like one derivative of the essence in Chinese
For
medical
males,
thought.
right? Or
Well,
for females?
for females as well. It's a little different. It's a little bit different. So often in classical medicine, they would talk about Tian Gui being formed from the essence, but there is still a connection to your sexuality with Jing a little bit as well. But more to the point, it's a very minor part of it, right? It's a very small part. So what also was some of the classical texts used to use sexual imagery to describe things. So, for example, the dragon and tiger copulating is a metaphor for two qualities of mind that arise within practice. And then these kind of things got mixed in with what they call bedroom classics. Mm-hmm. So bedroom classics, again, I'm sorry, a long answer, come into two categories. One of which are called, you might call pillow books, which we also used to have in England, apparently, in the sort of 1900s. Early 1900s, late 1800s, which was basically when a woman was going to get married, she often got married very young, and people praised virginity very much at the time, so she didn't have any sexual knowledge. So often what would happen is there would be a book that was explaining the sexual process put underneath her pillow, hence pillow book, so she'd go, right, that's what's going to go on, right? And it would talk about sexuality from a sort of classical Chinese perspective, so in Jing and Qi, things like this. Then there was a second type of bedroom classical book, if you like, which was given to the upper classes, not just the emperor, but also the elites within the country, that was kind of, in my opinion, selling them something, you know. I mean, all of the emperors and all of the rich people wanted to be immortal. They already all had all the power over China. And what you're not going to tell a powerful sort of emperor is you need to spend hours and hours and hours and hours sitting to try and achieve tiding, stillness, or samadhi. So what they started to do was they started to sell them on this idea that you could use your sexual practice with all of your consorts, your entourage of women that you have in order to develop this energy. So if you read them, and if you read the original classics, they're a mix of kind of sexual hygiene, as well as how to draw essence and energy off of the woman to sustain your health. That's it. That's all they were. So then there are some tenuous Qigong books around sexuality, which most alchemists or Taoists would disregard as being, you know, crazy, whatever that's just written. And they're very, very niche. So then certain teachers, and Mantak Chia is probably the most famous one, but there are others as well, took those texts and then brought them over to the West. And whether they did it deliberately or not, it's much easier, you know, like say I have 5 practices, one of them is about sex. Which one is everyone going to gravitate towards? They're going to go towards this one. So therefore what happens is that the one that starts to become widespread. And if you're going to start teaching and you think, oh, I want to build a school in marketing, and I'm not accusing Mantak Chia any differently from anyone else, then that's what starts to explode out and becomes the mainstay. But it should never have been a large part of Taoist practice or Qigong practice or anything. So if you are practicing sexual stuff as a sort of mainstay of your practice, you're mistaken. You just are. It's not an original practice. The other side to it, to me, being as diplomatic as I can, is everything has energy attached to it, right? And energy can be alluring. So some people, when they feel the dantian, can become a lord with a sense of power just from the more energy within their body. Some people, when they manage to emit a little bit, a lot of people get carried away. It's like a power trip, you know? Like they talk about gold sickness. People see gold and then they get greedy, you know, like Gollum with his ring or something. Like people will do this over a little bit of power. People will teach and then that goes to their head and they become a power hungry, whatever. Sexuality is even worse. So if you do find any energy within your sexuality, which anyone who's ever had an orgasm will recognize there is an energy that rises, people can become hooked and then it can start to become a power hungry kind of distortion. So I would say that even if you could find some authentic sexual practice, which I don't think you can anyway, most people, 99.9999% of people, do not have the spiritual or psychological maturity to work with that energy without it creating massive distortions, because it's a huge part of human nature, and we only have to look at psychology in the world to see how distorted people are around that subject. anyway, how much poor health there is. So in all these years, I've met many sexual practice masters, or, claimed they were, around the world, Indian traditions, yogic traditions, Chinese traditions. I never met one that wasn't a dickhead. I say it was just the official. I have not. I will just claim, if you are a sexual practitioner, maybe you are the one person who is managing it in a mature and healthy way, but every single one was just deluded into what I call the bottom of the barrel level of spiritual practice. Well, and then some people say you're just prudish, but it's like, not at all, not even slightly. No. I just think sex is a normal part of life you should enjoy with your intimate partner, but it's okay for your practice to be something else.
Russian movement males in Chinese internal arts who are practicing orgasm without ejaculation, saying that
Oh, right. I didn't know that's popular, is it?
Yes, it's quite popular within this particular niche.
Okay.
And I also know that it's like they want to save their Jing.
No, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work like this, right?
No, it doesn't work. No. I mean, essentially, the Jing, your essence, is converted into sexual drive or into that energy at the beginning of a sexual desire with the mind. Right? So therefore, as soon as the desire is there, the Jing is already converted. So the orgasm is the ejaculation, is almost irrelevant. And the orgasm, when it moves through the nervous system, also starts to burn up the Jing. So it doesn't really make any difference. It's too late. Yeah, it's too late. So the only counter argument to that, because I'm happy to argue with myself, is that somebody who is very, very deficient on the kidneys or very, very weak or very lacking in essence or something, then ejaculation can be uncomfortable for them. It can tax the body. But I would say that most people, if they're practicing martial arts or something, most people are not that deficient. So it's not something to worry about.
The other extreme would be celibacy that is also being practiced.
Yeah.
What is it like?
If it arises naturally, as with all these things, it's a state that arises naturally, and you're sure it's not because of some damage that has caused your hormones to move into an unhealthy state, which of course medically can be the case. Then it is okay. Like, it does happen at higher levels when people start to convert the essence into deeper substances within the body. You will find that a natural celibacy arises, but it is not so common. But if it is forced, then it is not natural. So therefore, it is a problem. I would advocate, to me, everybody worries about everything. And the ones you're asking, they worry about the diet, they worry about sexuality. I advocate normality for people. Like, too much sexual obsession, too much consuming of sexual media, or too much obsession with that side of life is a problem. To abstain from it in it's a problem for me is, in a way, is also a kind of obsession. To be, attracted or repulsed by something are both the same, so I think normality is better.
Let's talk about drugs.
Right. Okay. Go for it.
Yes.
Back through my past, or what are we doing now?
Because what I see so much right now, well, people don't call it drugs, it's psychedelics, right? Okay, yeah. And in English, I learned the expression, they call it teaching plants.
Oh, okay. As in ayahuasca and things like this, right? Okay.
So I see so many advertisements about ayahuasca retreats, mushroom retreats.
Okay.
And then, there is always the story of a friend who went through this ayahuasca ceremony and figure out how everything works and the universe and change their lives.
Yes.
But I also know, for example, that you mentioned that it should be at least 6 months of a gap between having ayahuasca. I think you were mentioning ayahuasca or any psychedelics? Any
psychotropics or psychedelics, yeah.
And actually you started practicing Qigong with you?
Yeah, I prefer the gap, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
why the gap, or what do I think of these?
What do you think?
I don't have a moral view on psychedelics first. I always want to point out it's not a moral or ethical view. I definitely experimented a lot with hallucinogens, including what you might call teaching plants, you call them. In my younger years, the town I grew up near, Glastonbury in the UK, everybody is into this, right? And that and peyote and all kinds of things. And definitely there was a lot of experimentation when I was younger, but they are to me quite separate from the spiritual process. They are individual. They're not the same thing. So the experiences that people talk about, going deeper into something or finding another realm within a layer of the being, is all still within the mind and still within psychology. So sure, you may go to a place where the plant spirits speak to you, or the reptilians come down, or whatever it is. Like, people do have these experiences. I'm not going to pretend I haven't spoken to aliens at various times on psychotropics. I don't think I was actually talking to aliens, but I've definitely had the experience of such things. You know, that's the pleasure of drugs. But no, it's all just psychology, psychological mind-based experience. So I think that sometimes people are doing work with psychotropics in like PTSD realms and things, and I don't know enough about that. And if that is helping people psychologically and they're doing it well, then more power to them. I don't know that. But with regards to spirituality and meditation, no, they're almost diametrically opposed. So actual spirituality is about the spirit, and the spirit sits further back, if you like, deeper than the mind and deeper than anything to do with psychology, and deeper than any layer that a plant teacher will go to. So there is also a model within spiritual traditions of, well, you can use Daoism actually, between heaven-based and earth-based practices. So things like shamanism of the Wu people, and plant medicines and animal totems and nature spirits and all of that would all be earth level. Yeah. And then things like meditation, if you like, or spiritual study would be heaven level. The idea being that earth level practices are all to do with your body and your psychology and your energy at most. At the worst end of scale, they can also be to do with the spirit world. No, I don't mean the spirit, I mean the spirits. You know. Mm-hmm. And that is not considered to cultivators to be a healthy level of practice. So if you look at historically what happened. Okay, well, let's take Daoism. Okay, because should stay within my lane, as they always tell me. So if you take Daoism historically had what? The Wu shamanic people. Yes. Okay, most people would agree with that. So we're talking people who did a lot of these earth-based practices and also had psychotropic plants and things like that as well within what they were doing, and someone in the rain or what have you. Then what happened? Well, then you had the incorporation. They started to encounter meditators, especially Buddhism, you know. Once these two started to meet each other, do you know what happened? They dropped all of the Wu shamanic practices. It all got dropped, and then the traditions moved into alchemy and then into things like heart-mind fasting and into meditation traditions. Because they realized that the earth-based level anchor you to the earth-based realm. And the heaven-level practices are said to enable someone to reunite with the divine. Mm-hmm. So again, it's not like a moral judgment on shamanic practices or earth-based things or plant medicine. They're just, if you want an experience or you want to play around with the psychology, then I'm sure those practices are something to explore. If you are after unification with spirit or Dao or your soul or the divine, then they are no good, because they are essentially an anchor in the wrong direction, which is why I believe them to be a problem, right? A lot of people that use a lot of these plant medicines, if you're able to perceive what's happening on the subtle realm, is they have a lot of parasites and negativity and blockages in their field anyway, because the earth-based realms are much closer to the spirit, the ghost realms, which is not a healthy place for people to play around anyway. So there is a, you know, again, not a moral judgment. Like if somebody wants to play around in the ghost realms, go for it. But as a spiritual practitioner in the most anally retentive sense of the term, to unite with spirit, then they are not helpful for my practice, and therefore I'm against them. So usually when I separate people from them, there's two reasons. One is I want them, if they're going to engage in a spiritual practice, to come fresh. Okay, so that everything has had time to reset, especially if they're prolonged psychotropic use. And the second thing is energy work and psychedelics don't mix very well in everybody. So some people, when you give them energy work and you give them psychedelics, it can cause extreme psychological breakdown, right? So I want the separation between the two before they start engaging with energy work. So some people would disagree, but I would argue that they're not really doing energy work. They're doing somatic work, which is not the same. Okay. Yeah. So that's my reason for it. That's my rationale. Okay. Yeah, but not morals, you know.
I see very two diametrical mindset.
Okay. Yeah.
The first one is, you're a spiritual person.
Yes.
Money is not important.
Yes.
Do you charge for your classes? Like this kind of mindset.
Yes.
And the other would be, meditation for business, or
Yes.
Mantek Chair, God bless him, offers to unlock the abundance of the universe with Qigong and
Oh, really?
to get, yes,
Like Qigong for money?
Yes.
Right, okay. Oh, I like law of attraction.
What is your view on that?
Well, I think money is either an irrelevant thing or a very relevant thing, depending on your level of wealth. I mean, as somebody who grew up in abject poverty to the state that, my family could not afford meals every day, like when we were younger. And therefore, money was very important to us, because if you didn't have enough, and you starve. And then other people are brought up in an abundance of it, but it's irrelevant to them, So again, I think it's quite individual, person to person. But within these arts, I think that you shouldn't be greedy. And I think that's probably a wise rule from the start. So everybody will need some money to survive. So if you're born a multi-millionaire and you don't need any money, then sure, teach for free. If you are living in a monastery where everything is provided, perhaps you teach for free if that's what you want to do. But most people are not, and most people need to make some money. So I think that there needs to be an amount you make. That is fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. When it becomes a problem is when you are charging so much that it's more money than you require. And also it's more money than most people can afford. And people are having to work out their finances to afford what you're doing. I think that is a problem. So I don't think that most people would say that my teachings are particularly expensive. I tend to keep the fee low, but that is because I would rather have a cost that everybody could afford to come, so that people have access to it. So the money runs the school, money keeps things going, money pays for lifestyle, money, pays for it, but it should never be too much, and it should never be greedy, and it should never be the aim of the practices, because you've already lost yourself in an attachment to something that is not correct. Yeah, would be my take on it. Tell you what, I can tell you how I manage money. And then, which I'm totally happy to do. And that's all I can do is give you my answer. So what happens is I will have a certain amount, call it a pot, that I will say, and this amount might have a number, and I will allow that pot to fill. And then that is the amount of money that I allow myself to have, right? And that number is decided upon the fact that I have a household to run and people that rely upon me. I have a lot of employees and things like that. So I have a number. Anything over that number, I get rid of. So it either goes back into the school, or it goes to somebody that needs money, or a charity or something, or it goes back out, because anything over that number to me is excessive wealth and not required. Yeah. So maybe that money will be, I don't know, invested into a building or something, or whatever, but you should not hold on to that wealth, I don't believe. That's the way that I have learned to manage money. And if you have that fixed number, it means you're not always asking for more, right? So what the other option is, you don't have an amount, right? And then what happens is you charge, and then you get some money, you think, oh, I'm doing well, but they're paying and they're not complaining. So I'll raise it by 20%, and then, I'll raise it by another 20%, another 20%, and then that becomes greedy. And then the problem with that kind of greed is it shows that you haven't yet dealt with one of the most basic attachments, with your attachments to life, survival and acquisitions, which is quite a basic part of our mind we should get past. Yeah. So that's my take on money anyway. But I'm not anti-money, but I'm anti-greed. I'm anti-greed.
The next question will be about objects.
Objects,
like
meditation or physical objects?
Crystals and beads and statues of gods, and you're wearing a cross.
I'm wearing a cross, yeah.
Yes. Question will be, does magic exist? But what I mean is that when I'm talking about magic in this sense, is this when... So
we're doing the magic question first, are we?
Oh, yeah, let's do the magic.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but I think it's connected to all the crystals and things. Is like, I understand the psychological thing, but do actually objects, like manipulating with objects, by what I mean by magic, manipulating with physical objects, we can actually influence the reality.
Right.
Like, very simple example, in China, I'm traveling with people, I'm bringing people to the temples.
Yes.
And then they're said, oh, you buy this piece of paper with red something written in this, like a spell.
Like a foo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and it will bring you prosperity. It will protect you from bad spirits, or it will give you this, or it will give you that. And then if we kind of extrapolate, is this the word in English as well?
Yeah.
For objects, you know?
Yes.
Like, oh, this is crystal that will change something, or this is a statue of God, and if you, I don't know, rub his belly for every day,
luck.
Yeah, it will bring you luck or money or something.
Sure. Yeah.
How does it work? Does it work? I mean, not psychologically, because I understand the psychological thing, right?
Yeah.
You have a lucky T-shirt, and then you feel confident, and then you wear it, and everything goes your way.
I can tell you several stories, actually. But first I would say, no symbol particularly has power unless we give it
to it
power, which is your psychological thing. So, for example, the swastika, for example, these days will have a very different meaning maybe to people in Europe than it does to Hindus living in India or Buddhists living in China, right? So you can see that symbol doesn't uniquely have power, because clearly not, because the different groups of people will see it a different way, right? So there is a psychological quality to it. No symbol will of its own accord have power. So if you draw a Fu talisman, okay, or sorry, the like you said, the red pattern, in case people don't know the term, it will do nothing. It will do nothing. It doesn't matter if you burn it in water and people drink it, or you turn it into ash, or you give it to a temple, it does nothing, right? It is a piece of paper with a symbol on it, I'm afraid. An example of this being, I heard recently that a fairly famous teacher in Europe, in the internal arts, lost his temper with some students. So he wrote them a death fu, a fu to kill them, and sent it to them in envelopes. And none of them died, so it's okay. No.
Oh, okay, that's a good story.
And none of them died. So therefore, the fu didn't work, luckily. So the fu, by its count, doesn't have any power, right? Same with a magical item or an object or something like this. No more than anything else. No more than a statue. My cross doesn't have any power particularly to it. I like the symbol. It has meaning to me psychologically, but it has no power, right? I can't fight vampires off of it. But an item can be charged.
It
can be charged.
Okay.
So that kind of counters what I was saying. So geometry, a geometrical symbol, a yantra or a fu or a talisman, by a very skilled practitioner, can be used to hold a transmission. Right? In the same way that you know that energy can be put into a space to influence the energy body of somebody within that area, which is maybe outside of some people's belief system, but I hope you've seen is actually a thing.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. The same, it can be put into a symbol or certain objects, and it's normally to do with what the object is made of more than anything else. It's why golds and things are valued on a spiritual level. You couldn't put it into lead, brick, wood, not so easily. But can hold a charge. But the teacher has to be skilled enough to do this. The practitioner has to be skilled enough to do this. And it's not something that anybody can do. So when you go to a temple and they will put a piece of string around you in Bali, or they give you a fu or a talisman, they're not charged. Like your average Catholic priest can't bless water. It's not possible. He can't bless water. Blessed water means something, yeah. But most people cannot. Most of the temple people in China cannot. Most priests cannot. So therefore, it's become like an empty ritual left of something that is actually quite prized. So I have several charged items within my collection that actually do something, and they have a charge, but they're quite prized because they're quite hard to get hold of, and they're not something that would just be handed out en masse.
You have to be able to use it. Like, you have also to be a practitioner of a certain level to use it?
No.
Or like, what does it...
I'll tell you a story then. I know about one teacher, one practitioner who could make talismans that you're asking about. So the talisman could be created, and then the talisman could be charged, meaning an imprint could be put into the talisman. So this talisman, whatever its meaning was, to change the energy within a space, a Feng Shui kind of thing. So people would put it on there within a room to change the energy. Now, there was a disagreement between the talisman maker and somebody else that meant he broke the talismans. So it is possible to snap the spell, if you want, and take the energy out of the object once again. So what he did was, this teacher took the energy out of the talismans. Now, I know two people that had those talismans. The same day, one person's talisman, the whole wall split all the way through where the talisman was on the wall. So it just shifted, almost like an earthquake had gone through and cracked it. And a window broke just above it as well. And another person on the same day, the entire ceiling in their room just collapsed, like destroyed. So, like the ceiling just came through like there'd been a water heater leak or something, just destroyed. Because the talismans had so much power that what they do is they resonate with the magnetism within that space. And when the talisman is broke, all that magnetism draws in, and then that's why it starts to affect the environment, right?
What is a talisman for?
Okay, take Feng Shui, for example.
Yeah.
What does Feng Shui work with? Wind and water.
Okay.
Feng Shui. What is wind and water? Wind and water is wind means the magnetism within the space, the resonance within that area. Okay. What is water? It is the magnetism, the resonance from the place on which it sits. So wind and water means the energy, the resonance within the air, and the resonance on the floor, right? And people would discuss it different ways, but that's what it is. So this room that we are sat in has wind and water, right? Meaning the energy in the space and the energy in the floor. So if it is magnetism, it is affected by items, right? It's affected by things. So if you have particular alignment of a space, lined up to the poles wrong, or these days it's all irrelevant because you have electrical wires. We've got a light here, so we've got cables running in the wall. So all of those things are going to impact the energy within that room because it's a form of magnetism, right? So sometimes that resonance is healthy, sometimes not. So sometimes you'll go into a space and you will sleep, and the wind and the water, the magnetism is not right, so it will disrupt your nervous system, right? Because we react to energy, react to magnetism, electricity. So therefore, we start feeling agitated, and after a while it can make us sick, right?
Oh, okay.
Whereas if the resonance is very good within that space, the magnetism is very pure, it's not dirty energy in there, then someone can sleep in it and they'll be fine, or maybe even nourished. So what happens is Feng Shui practitioners will either be superstitious, meaning pointless, okay, or they will understand it fully and they will adjust a space with items that change that resonance within an area. This is why crystals are valued, because they affect the resonance within an area.
So they do affect the resonance.
Crystals can affect the resonance within an area. In the same way that a quartz, like a watch, sometimes has a crystal in as a form of energy. Crystalline substances affect magnetism and electronicity within an area, so they can be used to change something. But a little statue of a frog will not do anything.
But when people say, oh, like this, the crystal of this mineral makes this, and it can do it.
It can do it, yeah. So if you have a talisman, if it's a Feng Shui talisman, when it is charged, can go in that space and then it will affect the resonance within that room. So on a modern Feng Shui, if you like, would go. So you say you take this space, the Feng Shui here is awful. We sat in a terrible spot, right? We got a big open area here you can't see on the camera. That's why you can hear all the animals outside. But you've got electrical cables, you've got plumbing, you've got everything, all right, surrounding us. And all this metal and all of this electricity and the barriers here affect the magnetism negatively. So this is an unhealthy spot. So you would not be able to sleep here, be hard to relax here, be agitated, because your nervous system is pushed into fight or flight. So a Feng Shui practitioner, through either a classical model or a modern model, would put things in it to adjust or switch the resonance of the magnetism in that space so that your body moves into rest and digest, and then is a nourishing space. You see, so that's a modern take on the energetics of Feng Shui. So a talisman will have a charge that affects that energy within that area to move it into a calmer, more neutral place.
Okay. Yeah. So it's basically a tool of tuning a human body, nervous system to function better or worse.
To tune the space.
To tune the space.
Yeah. It's not actually the most important part with all this, because, it's just a side part of the tradition. It's not my specialty. But if you think about it, right, if we were to take you and lay you down and put you in a really strong magnetic field, after a while your nerves are going to react, right? It's because you're electrical. That's basically how Feng Shui works. That's what the wind and water is. Yeah? So they want it all aligned according to the compass, the poles, so that everything is healthy within your body. So
closing the toilet lid doesn't help to make a better Feng Shui in the house.
It stops the smell coming out of the bathroom, yeah.
Or you can also wash the toilet, it also helps.
There's lots of, the problem with all these traditions is it's mixed with a lot of superstition too. It's superstition too. So I've taught Feng Shui in the past and I've done courses on it, and I don't think anyone who did it ever really, none of them could argue with the logic of it. There's a strange logic to it. It might not be a logic you expect, but it's quite logical. Yeah.
Astrology.
There
are Chinese systems like Bazi, Zewei Shu.
Yep.
And I know Vedic astrology, and there is Western astrology. What do you think about astrology?
Not my area. I give you my opinion, but I'm not an expert in it. I think that a lot of people, when they come into these arts, try to study the whole thing. Yeah. So I have some knowledge of Feng Shui. I have a little bit of knowledge of Bazi, but not very deep. Yeah.
But I remember in some podcast with Rob Aspel, where you were talking about Chinese medicine, you were actually talking about Bazi to define ghost points in Chinese medicine.
Yeah, it's a part of Chinese medicine, yeah. My knowledge of Bazi is about understanding the stems and branches and the timing related to medicine more than anything else. But actual sort of deep stuff, I don't understand, I don't know. But astrology is based on the idea that we are affected by the positioning of the planets and the alignment of the stars in the sky, which is absolutely a thing. Yes, completely.
Also, like when you were born?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And even, strangely, when a house is first moved into, is considered the birth of a house, yeah. So timing, the art of timing is absolutely huge. But again, it is about what resonant influences there are upon the planet and you at that particular time. So yes, it's real, yeah. In the same way that you can clearly see on a basic level, especially women, will be more energized on the full moon and much more tired on the dark moon. Not for everybody, but a lot, yeah. And that influence just of that one body, the moon, has, is only then amplified out into these other bodies. But so, yes, it's real, but I don't know anything about it. Well, I mean, if you teach a room full of 100 Qigong people, we'll say 50 of those are women. 35 of those are very, very strongly affected by the moon.
Okay.
Right? So if 35 out of 50 of the women are affected by the moon, I would say that has an effect on people. The men tend to be more dense. They don't notice. But yeah, it's no different for all of the planets and the constellations in the sky. Absolutely. But I choose to ignore it.
Because?
I don't find it very empowering personally, and I don't wish to live my life according to a bunch of stuff that is outside of my power, so I don't pay attention to it. And the people I've seen that become overly obsessed with astrology, some people do it healthily and they use it as a guide alongside their life. Some people do it really unhealthily and it becomes an excuse for everything.
Then let's switch to divination topic.
Like Yarostov's, I Ching and stuff?
First, tarot reading.
Tarot? Right, okay.
And yeah, I know that you've written a great book on I Ching.
Yes.
That people can buy on Amazon.
If they want.
Listen to some of your lectures and read the book. I realized that it's much more than just a tool of divination.
Yeah. I Ching is, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So could you please...
Sure. Well, firstly, I don't know much about tarot cards.
Do you think it's possible that using some objects, people can see the future?
I don't think they see the future. I think they see the current moment, actually.
Okay.
I think that's where there's a misunderstanding. Actually, my family are gypsies, so quite a lot of them. So the tarot cards actually were something a lot of my relatives used. Some of my relatives into tarot cards actually, but I don't know anything about them. Okay. But I would imagine they work in a similar way, maybe, to the I Ching, but there's probably tarot readers and I Ching people that would disagree with me, and they probably know better than I do. So I can talk about the I Ching.
Okay.
Which is essentially what happens is those kind of divinational methods, actually they're more like earth-based methods, going back to what we were saying before. They're not spiritual methods, they're earth-based methods, similar to the shamanic stuff.
Are there spiritual divinations?
No. Divination by its nature is not spiritual.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's earth-based, right? So the idea is that with that kind of divination, if you take the I Ching, the actual process of casting rather than the text and the symbols, is the casting process with the arrow stalks takes about 25 minutes or something like that, maybe, if you do it properly, right? That's why you shouldn't use the coins, or you shouldn't use an online version. It should be done with the arrow stalks, right?
What about skewers?
Well, whatever you do. I mean, the arrow is supposed to have a quality to it, but, taking the reading should take you time, is the point. So what happens is somebody who's good at it, and there's a couple of people, actually one of the students in there is way better than me at it, and they cast it, and what happens is it's rhythmic. And it's based upon a repeated pattern that lulls you into a trance, not a meditative state, a trance. And the difference is that a trance lets you access your kind of subconscious, if you like. And at the level of subconscious, symbolism becomes a lot more important to you. A lot of psychologists would agree with this. So in that place, in that sort of subconscious place, what happens is there's a way to interpret what is happening in that given moment to kind of understand the subconscious of that moment as well. And that's kind of what's being shown to you by the symbols or the gua, right? So this is the ancient Chinese logic, and I'm not saying I agree with it or not. Say you take a chicken bone in the old days and they throw it in the fire, and then they pull it out the fire and it's covered in cracks, which is what it was based on, this old idea. So they would read the cracks. So we might say scientifically maybe the cracks are because of weakness in the bone or something like that. But to the old Chinese, the reason the cracks made that shape in that particular moment is because of the inherent energy of that given moment, right? So nothing is random. It's only a result of the causative things that have led to that moment, right? So because they're looking at the causation in the bones coming out of the fire, the next belief they have is that everything is a holographic representation of everything else. So do you know how a hologram works? Yeah. So basically, if you have a holographic image and you cut it up into little bits, you actually get the whole image again, right? It's because of the way that it's made. Science, which is witchcraft to me, I don't understand it. So a little version of it. So everything is holographic, which is why your acupuncture points on your ear can reflect your body, or even on your thumb bone can affect your body, or your foot, or whatever. They're holographic representations of the rest of you. So if all of life is holograms, what is going on is that microcosmic representation of the current moment in the chicken bones. The cracks also show you what is going on at the macrocosmic level of everything at that given moment. You understand? So you're taking a microscopic holographic part of reality and using it to read, right? Okay. So the Aristotles are the same. The idea being that by using the Aristotles, accessing your subconscious and then connecting it to these archetypal symbols, it gives you a reading of the causative chain of energy at that very moment, right there within what you're doing. And then that is a reflection of what's going on in the wider world.
For this person? Or in general?
Well, I think in general. So I think this is why the question in many ways is almost irrelevant in I Ching casting. Some people think it's the most important part. I think it's the least important part. Because the energy at that given moment also reflects any question that's asked or any aspect of life whatsoever, if you get what I mean, because it's all just a giant hologram. So rather than casting for the future, you're looking to understand what's happening now. And because you understand what's happening now, if you are skilled in it, you understand where we are on the causative chain. And then that enables you to understand what leads to what comes next. So this is why you study the nature of change in the current moment, and what is that change going to impact in the future. So you have changing lines in the
that's why it's the Book of Change.
The Book of Change, right? You understand, yeah? So divination is not about like, who are you going to marry and how many kids you're going to have or something like that. That's the gypsy palm readers, right?
Yes.
They're never right. What the divinator with the I Ching are doing is understanding what is happening at this very moment to bring them into connection with that change right now. And if they have a good knowledge of the I Ching or wisdom, then it will show them what patterns are likely to unchange from this current moment. So that's how divination works, in my opinion. I'm not very good at it, funnily enough. I wrote a book on it, I can explain it. I studied it for many, many years, but a trance state is difficult for me. Especially the better I got meditation, the harder a trance became.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense.
Because the more I could go into a meditative state, the more that subconscious loss of self into that particular layer was lost for me. So part of the reason I wrote the I Ching was to try to show people the method. So therefore, there are some people, like there's one lady here actually who's just exceptional at it. Like she's very, very good, and she will touch that state, and the reading is good, but she's better than me because I can't enter that state so easily. But that's what divination was for.
But it's not something, like you mentioned multiple times, that you don't want to talk about dreams with people.
No, it's my least favorite conversation.
Yes.
Everyone else's favorite conversation.
What you know from your perspective about dreams? Like, do people have to, because, some people really, they write down their dreams and they think it's very important. Yeah. And, that they actually connected to something higher through their dreams. And there are dreams that telling you the future.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, dreams. The first thing we should say is, if you are doing well in your meditation, then all dreams should end, so that you do not dream. So that when you go to sleep, you go into a meditative state, which means stillness, right? So if you are still dreaming, it means you are not a meditator.
Okay.
Right? Not yet. You've not yet reached that stage, because dreams are activity of the mind at the level of the subconscious. So the part of the reason people will get great answers from their sleep is because your forward front conscious part of your brain, your intellectual part of the brain, is pretty dull. So sometimes when you go to sleep and it gets out of the way, the subconscious part of your mind will come forward, and then you will understand something. So dreams have a place in that way for sure. So I'm not anti-dream. I think that dream analysis is a strange thing, because symbols don't mean the same to you or I.
Yes.
So what a particular shape or color will mean to you is not the same for me. So dream analysis is very, very tricky. And I'm sure that for someone, you're probably better off using it for yourself to explore your own subconscious than asking somebody else, because you're more likely to know what to you than it does to me. But so I stay away from all that. And I think the other thing with dreams is, the reason I don't like talking about it is twofold. I mean, firstly, because when someone says, I want to tell you about my dream, what they're saying is, I want to give you a long, rambling story about something that didn't happen. That's what they're saying. So they'll tell you this wild story, and then all the time while they're telling me, in my mind, but this didn't happen. It's a dream. So why are you telling me? You're telling me something that's not real. So that's why I don't like to talk about dreams. It feels like a waste of time. And then the second one as well is I think that people place too much importance on them. I think that they don't understand that a lot of it is mental chatter, in the same way that when you're trying to meditate, when you're awake, you have mental chatter. Dreams are just the same thing.
Okay. Practicing with you, I experienced in such phenomenon as we call the Fa Gong here, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically, as far as I understand, when people have dantian and when they have more qi in their body, and the qi hits all the blocks, psychological and physiological, like muscle, and then people twist, and the twitches, the body twitches, they move. Sometimes they're singing, sometimes they're laughing. Like no names. No names. I've seen some video here in Ubud where there was some guy standing next to 3 females on the floor, and he was doing something with his hands. And then the women were doing pretty much the same on the floor. Or someone told me about yoga bar and Kundalini yoga. And when they were doing something, like all these seminars about Kundalini yoga where people are, just spasming and moving. I don't think they have dantian.
No.
Like what's going on there? Because it looks like spontaneous, it looks like the Fa Gong.
Well, first, it's not Kundalini.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Kundalini is definitely nothing to do with spontaneous movements that arise inside your body. That's the first thing. Kundalini is not of the body, not in the body, so it doesn't affect the body. So they're already mislabeling it. The Fa Gong, if you want, the reactions you see where people are starting to twitch and things like yoga and stuff like that are essentially because your nervous system is electrical, and sometimes in your nervous system, your nerves are like tree roots, right? And sometimes they're bundled up like this. So in some traditions, they talk about like knots or something. And what happens is when something happens to open that knot, then the energy within it is released. So you can think of it like having a electrical circuit like this, and sometimes when it opens, all of a sudden the energy runs along that line. Because your nervous system is suddenly receiving a lot more electricity, it will cause muscular twitches. So then people will start to, the muscles will tighten, and that's why people react.
So they use different exercises to do this?
Well, it's not quite the same thing as Fa Gong. It's basically latent energy, electrical energy within your nervous system suddenly moves.
Okay.
The byproduct is it causes a contraction. Because I'm talking about sort of when you will see people in yoga, or like the guy moving his hands, people thrashing around on the floor. Social media is covered in these days. And because your spine has huge bundles of nerves in it, it's usually going to be the spine. So it creates these movements. And because some people will equate the Shushumna or the Kundalini with the spine and mistakenly think that's Kundalini, or because the teacher wants to charge you more money, they'll tell you it's Kundalini. For in actual fact, it's your nerves causing contraction of your muscles along the length of your spine. So what happens is when those nerves are no longer imbalanced, they are open a bit more, then they will no longer cause a contraction and the movements will end. So people are thrashing around not because of Kundalini, they're thrashing around because they are still tight and locked in the back.
And then they're talking about these experiences and now how free they are and how great they feel.
Well, that's mostly because, all right, so a couple of things. So this is separate from Fa Gong. This is what we're talking about with regards to what you're seeing. First thing, the person above them moving their hands is not affecting their movements.
Okay.
Right? That is called stage magic. So what's happening is you will watch, they will move, and then he will move, but actually he's emulating their movements. So once the energy is moving through their nervous system...
okay, he's just following.
Exactly. And then it looks like he's controlling.
Okay.
It's showmanship and making money, right? Okay. And there's lots of it goes on here in Ubud, and they're trying to sell it all over. But it also is used in the West now for PTSD treatment for ex-military quite a lot as well. where they find that the nervous system has a lot of stuff stored in
Okay.
it. So what they do is they get them to go through a process using the breath actually that releases it, and then they will also spasm as the nervous system opens up to let go of that stress. Osho used to do it by making people jump up and down and go whoop, 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 for hours and hours in a room. The sannyasins would do this, and then when they stop, all their energy is rushed around, and they would also enter into thrashing states because now more energy is moving through the nervous.
I see.
So it's all just more juice through the nervous system temporarily. Because it is moving through your nervous system, it will create feelings.
Yes.
Right? Because that's what your nervous system does. And a lot of those feelings are almost like adrenaline dumps, which will create euphoria.
Yeah.
So then people will mistake that euphoria for pity or bliss of spiritual traditions that they talk about. So you see, we have a kind of near enemy because we have spasms in the spine and hyperexcitement mistaken for Kundalini and entering a bliss state. Right? Because it's in the back and it feels good.
I see.
It's not the same thing. So
plus mind that says, I'm so cool, what was that? Yeah.
And nobody wants to go and do 18 years in the Himalayas. They'd much rather go to the yoga class to do spinal exercises. Yes. Please. Some good-looking guy with a top knot who man bun, who moves his hands. Yeah. Right. So it is nervous system release is what is going on. And so Fa Gong is a little different, or the way they do it in Qigong, because the similarity is the nerves are releasing. That is true. What is different is because of the accumulation of qi within the dantian and the magnetism, is there is an organizing field behind it. So what happens is it starts to organize, and this is why you get orbits.
Okay.
Right? So rather than just randomly letting all that energy move through your nerves and causing you to thrash around for 20 years, it will start to pull it into a pattern, and this is what the Qigong practitioners were mapping out with these orbits here. So the difference between the modern traditions that are just trying to release the nerves is that they're just releasing the nerves. And the ancient traditions that have the advantage of multiple generations of experience is they recognize that energy needs to be organized in a particular way in your body in order for you to progress sufficiently and for it to be healthy. You understand what I mean? Right? So they're quite different.
It's like chaos over order.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because any modern creation system, it doesn't matter how good you are, you've just created a new Qigong system, or you've created a new yoga system.
That I saw in my dreams.
You saw in your dreams. One person's experience, no matter how good you are, can't match 35 generations of experiences of masters. It can't. So therefore, it is always going to be flawed compared to the older methods. So most of these new modern creations that normally millennials and whatever are starting to create are flawed because they don't have the multiple experience of generations of practice. So it's hubris and arrogance for them.
I'll take a step a little bit further. Stop it. Step a little bit further.
Yeah.
My dad is Orthodox Christian. And, we know the stories about exorcism, like when people appear in church and they see an icon, or a priest would say a blessing, and then they would do basically the same as, again, the Fa Gong of these people. Is it the same mechanism with...
So you understand what I mean by this energy bunched up?
Yes.
So, for example, your sacrum has a lot of energy bunched up.
Yes.
Because if you ever look at your sacrum, it's got little foramens.
Yeah.
The nerves will move out of these foramens, almost like a bundle of nerves down in here. So all that electricity in the nerves is running around. And then what happens is when those nerves are free, then the energy will run.
Yes.
So what can move it? Sometimes exercise, breathing, stretching, it's a yogic work. People have done it through sunrise salutations, working on that area, or heightened emotional experience. So sometimes people go into stress. What do they start to do?
Yes.
Shake and move. Yeah. It's similar kind of thing. Some people have been so stressed sometimes that they will go into extreme sort of reactions on the floor. I'm not talking a fit, but something else. Extreme religious experience is, for many people, a very strong heightened emotional state, which can be aversion to a religious symbol or attraction to a religious symbol, or they feel the touch of God, which means all that euphoria inside their body mixed with the idea of something higher creates such a strong emotional feeling that releases that energy within the nerves. So then they start thrashing around on the floor, and that's when it changes. Or the medical ones, where you see them all freaking out in the eyes. You'll very rarely get a hyper-relaxed, chilled-out, cool, ambivalent person who goes into the church and has that experience, or a very ambivalent, relaxed person who goes into that yoga class and freaks out. It is always people that the nervous system is held in a state of tension. So if you're going to market, for example, some yoga thing where people are having Kundalini experience and you're standing above easily three attractive women, because also just death now and sex and pausing people as well, so it's a clever marketing for them. Is they chose the people in the video very carefully, right? For those three rushing around on the floor, there's probably 4 or 5 over the corner.
They're just
what the fuck is going on? So it is the heightened stress people that get it. So, for example, Fa Gong, I was in a lot of groups here, so I never went into huge amounts of stuff because my body was quite open and quite relaxed, and I was quite surprised when I first started Qigong how strong some people go into it. But I don't think I was ever particularly uptight.
Okay. You mentioned this kind of thing several times, like what is called Siddhi.
Siddhi is a strange one because actually originally within yoga tradition means to very specific things. But these days it's used more generically to mean a power or ability that is not normal, if you like. The things that were, I mean, on a simplistic level, if you go very deep into Qigong or energetic practice, it is possible for the body, for the mind, for the spirit to start to be able to do things that are outside what you normal people can do. And those are, considered Siddhi, if you like, using the more general use of the word. I know, like, historians will say, actually, within chapter 24 of this classic Siddhis is, but I'm using it in more generally. Mm-hmm. So, on a very basic level, it might be something like Qi emission, which is to ability to send something out of the body. But then it can go deeper and deeper into, like charging the talismanic symbols would be a form of Siddhi.
Oh, okay.
That's not something most people can normally do from birth. But all of the abilities that you read about are real. Yeah, people can do them. It should be said that 99.9% of what you see online is not real, because for the real to exist, so must the fake. For the fake to exist, so must the real. But there are, lots of perceptions, the seeing of the energetic realm and the magnetism and what have you, being able to perceive place and locations, different realms and stuff. This is all real, yes. The problem is that they cause a striving in people. They start to seek it. And they're seeking the wrong thing. And the problem is when you seek it, 2 things will happen. One, you can't find it because that's the nature of your mind. You'll create your own block. And secondly, you'll become prone to people that will then start to con you. And because once they see somebody with enthusiasm or something, they will draw it in. So heightened capabilities, if you want to call them that, are a thing, but they should be irrelevant to the sincere practitioner. You should study the art because you love the art. That is enough. Okay? And if you get to a stage where such things arise, that is fine, but you should not strive for them because you are normally striving for the wrong reason. Most people who seek the ability to do amazing things with Qi is because they couldn't get girls at school or they were bullied. If we're totally honest, they were inadequate in some level or they feel inadequate. So they think, because I am inadequate in life and I'm not some highly popular, sought-after individual, that if I obtain this magical skill, then I will deal with this inadequacy in myself. And of course, that doesn't work. You were a dork, now you're a dork with skills. It's even if you do get the skills. So it doesn't really change what they feel on the inside. So if you find that you have a desire, like a burning desire for these magical skills, it's no different for a desire for the money. It's an unhealthy part of your nature that you should look at and try to understand. Because the art should be studied for the love of the art, not much else.
Let's get back more to real, like basic things. Cold showers, ice baths. I know there is a contradiction on this because people with Chinese medicine, people are talking about how great it is for their health.
It's mixed. Like, I think Chinese medicine, you have to remember, it's talking about sick people.
Okay.
Chinese medicine is talking about sick people.
Okay.
So everybody who does Chinese medicine becomes a hypochondriac. I know I run a Chinese medicine college. Everyone's a hypochondriac. They start studying like kidneys, my spleen. They start worrying. But Chinese medicine is referring to people, patients that are coming in usually in a state of ill health. So therefore, if you take a deficient person who's very tired and you expose them to extreme cold, it can be too much of a shock to their system and it can damage them even more. But somebody who is in good health, who is very resilient, if they have cold water on them or bucket water over their head or whatever, it can actually push the boundaries of their resistance and actually make them grow a little bit.
Okay.
So I, for example, quite enjoy dipping in cold pools, maybe not Wim Hof level, I'm not that good at it, but I quite like the cold plunge or a cold shower for me, but I'll only do it on days where I feel very vibrant because I feel, like it sort of pushes the boundary of your energy a little bit. On days when I'm tired or deficient or anything, there's no way I'll go anywhere near it because I know my body can't take it. It's too much of a shock to the system. And I think that if you understand that, you will see where the place in sort of cold water therapy comes from. So I think a lot of people, if you've got big, robust people going to the gym and they dip in the cold water, they'll be fine.
Okay.
They ain't going to suddenly deplete their kidneys. But if you've got someone who's a bit more frail or a bit more sick or suffering with a digestive system or something, and then they suddenly do lots of cold dips, it's going to cause problems when it's going to burn up the body. You might temporarily feel like it gives you energy, but that's called fight or flight.
Yeah, nervous system, yeah.
But it's actually going to deplete. So I don't think that it's a hard answer as to whether it's good or bad. I think it depends who you are.
What about Hof's methods?
I don't know enough about them, actually.
Okay.
With regards to the cold specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it.
Okay.
He's a controversial character, but I wouldn't have much knowledge.
Let's get a little bit deeper to meditation and Vipassana retreats.
The 10-day job?
10 days, yes. And I heard from you that it might not be a very good idea.
I don't think they're a good start point.
Okay.
That's more my point. Because if you are a meditator, 10-day retreat is nothing. 10 days, 10 hours a day meditating, whatever you do, 10 days is nothing. So the reason I'm not advocating for beginners is because you don't know how you react to meditation.
Okay.
So if you are an experienced meditator and you're used to sitting yourself and you know you don't enter into depressive states from it, to then go do a 10-day thing is okay. But if you are somebody that has got a lot of pain and a lot of turmoil on the inside, you don't want to go and sit with it for 10 days because it might break you. So this is why a lot of people get problems with meditation, is because they do these intense retreats.
And ironically, people who actually have problems usually go to Vipassana, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
You desire the poison. So what you should do when you first start is drip feed it a little bit. Do a little bit. Maybe go to a weekly class. Go see someone do an hour. See how you handle it and then build up to a retreat. Because 10 days is nothing if you're a meditator. But if you're not a meditator, 10 days is a long, long time. So I'm not anti doing the 10-day retreats. I think people should dip their toe in the water first before they try it, because I know a lot of people that have had problems with it, including yourself as well. I don't think that most people that do the 10-day Vipassana retreats break or have problems, but there is a percentage of them, and that's why I don't advise it from the beginning. So usually when I hear somebody who's never done anything and they say, I'm going to go on this 10-day retreat, I'm like, maybe go see a teacher, do a Wednesday night, go to a couple of classes, see how you handle it. If it's good for you, then go do it.
Can you please also talk about this stereotype that meditation and Qigong is good for everyone? And what I see is that it's being prescribed as universal remedy for everyone, particularly with mental problems.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a universal cure for everybody. No such thing. If something involves the human interaction, then there are variables. If there are 100 humans, there's 100 different variables. If I give one pill to 100 people, you will get 100 different results. Maybe some of them very close, but the human, the human quality, if you want, is going to create a different reaction. So if you're going to take Qigong and 100 people are going to do it, you're going to get 100 different results. I would say most of the time those results are going to be healthy, but for some people it's not healthy. And that's a part of the skill of teaching, is understanding through experience, which is why people shouldn't start teaching immediately after 5 minutes, is through enough experience and working with a teacher who understands these things. What are the signs of someone that this is not good for them? Okay, what is the signs that this is affecting negatively? Meditation is much easier because it's leading to depression or nihilism than it is not a positive experience. If it is leading to an increase in emotional heightened qualities, it's not a good experience. In Qigong, if they're not the right people and it has strong energy work, it can create mood swings, excess heat in the body, health collapses, digestive conditions for sure. It can cause all kinds of problems. It's not the majority of people, but yes, that's a part of the skill of the teacher to check that. And sometimes, not very often, sometimes in Lotus Nibbana, when I teach, I have to go up to a student and say, I'm really, really sorry, but you're better off with yoga.
Oh, really?
Like that. Yeah, sometimes. And I would advise him to go somewhere else. And it's always, in fact, here in this school, I've done it to, how many people have come through the door? It's getting hundreds, right? Probably to were told that they had to go something else. This was not the answer then.
Can we continue talking about meditation? Because, again, when I started practicing with you, I encountered a very different approach to meditation, which was not method-based. Because, when people are talking about meditation, they always talk about techniques, but you have a very specific approach to what meditation is. Could you please explain it?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there is a method in the meditation system we do. The method is to use various things to change the variables in your body and your mind and your energy system, and then sit there and do nothing. And if the variables are correct, then they will lead to the outcome that we call meditation. So when I say there is no meditation method, how can something that leads to unification with spirit, if you want to use that term, Shen or whatever, or lead you to a meditative state, how can it arise as a byproduct of a doing of a method? It can't. It's a contradiction in terms. So if I follow my breath, that will not lead you to meditation. If I absorb into an object, it will not lead you to meditation. It will lead you to concentration. If I absorb into my body, if I scan through my body, if I, whatever people do, there's 100 different things. Focus on the point between the nose and the lip. Yeah. None of these things will lead to meditation because they are still using a doing, not an undoing, still a method. So therefore, the most that will happen is you will move into a psychological state, but that is still not meditation because it's still not of the, meditation is not of the mind, not of psychology. It's what exists before the mind and before psychology. So there cannot be a method.
But it's already a huge difference because when people think about meditation, yes, they don't think about unification with the spirit. They think about calming down.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. In that case, I should be less strict with my definition of meditation. So when I say meditation, what I mean is jhana, entering into a jhanic state. So if you're defining meditation as relaxation or being calm or making the mind go quiet or any of those things, then of course a method can be used for those things, but I don't class that as meditation. I consider that psychology.
Okay.
So yeah. Meditation begins when you are past mind and beyond psychology, right? So a method can at most affect your psychology, maybe your energy, maybe your body, but it can't take you beyond those things, which is why the story is always the same. I meditated for years. I did this method, did that method. I got so fucking sick of it. I just thought, well, I've wasted my life. I quit. And then they get enlightenment, right? They got enlightenment because they no longer used a method. But you can't start with no method. They had to do lots of exercises to change the variables. So once they sat and done nothing, the variables were in place, and then the experience comes, and then meditation arises. Meditation is a method to go beyond psychology and the mind. Most people, Buddhists might disagree actually, but I think they misinterpret what Buddha was saying. But most would agree that once you get beyond the mind, there is something else. And to me, that is the religion is guiding towards this. I don't count religion as being a member of a church or a mosque or whatever, where you have to cut your beard a certain way and you have to pray a certain way and all this nonsensical stuff that makes no difference to you whatsoever. Those are rituals. Religion is, do you have a personal relationship with the divine? Meditation is a method to give you a personal relationship with the divine. Whether you personify that into a god or you say that there is nothingness within that divine, it doesn't really make any difference. It's still divinity. So meditation is the crux of religious practice to me. So it's hard to separate the two.
Okay. Could you please give your, if it's okay, to give your perspective on Dao De Jing? Because vast majority of people I meet, and when they're talking about Dao De Jing, they're telling me this is a book about society and politics and government. And I know that you have a very different perspective.
No, it's definitely not that at all. The idea of a nation or a country or people, these are terms that come up a lot, don't they? Or a kingdom or ruling the country like you're cooking a fish or whatever. All of these things are metaphors that he was using the outside world as a metaphor for the qualities of your mind and your emotion, all the things that you find, the sense faculties on the inside of you. So the Dao De Jing has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with philosophy. It has nothing to do with how you live your life. It's a direct instructional manual for how to adjust the variables within your mind so you can go beyond method.
Another popular stereotype and myth that Taoists learned everything from the nature.
Yes, not true. In the same way that no kung fu style was ever learned by watching how a tiger moved or something. Like you don't watch a tiger and suddenly know how to fight. That's not happening. Any spiritual tradition comes from deep personal insight, deep inside the being. And then what happens when you go deep inside the being is that various understandings and comprehensions arise. And what happens is you then need to explain it. So one way that the Taoists explained it was they used analogy in the outside, in the environment, in order to explain it to people, because when it was formulated, most people were living outside in nature. So they had seen cranes and they had seen bamboo. Yeah. They knew what fire, water, wood were and things like this. So they could use analogies of the outside to explain what they were doing. But no Taoist ever understood the nature of their being by watching a tree or anything. It did not happen then. You could argue that Taoism has a connection to things like astrology and things like we said before, but I would say even that understanding of how that influence in the outside affects you can only really come to a deep level if you're able to look deep enough inside. Yeah. Right? So no, that whole view of Taoism looks at nature is not true.
Okay.
Even Zurang, the word they translate
as nature, Zurang,
means your self-expression, like the deepest part of your being, your nature, not the nature.
Okay. Thank you so much.